You are standing in a barn built in 1963. The wood above your head has not been touched by a nail in over 60 years. The beams are held together by nothing but oak, pegs, and gravity. It is 38 degrees outside, but inside this barn, near the north wall, it is a steady 52. No furnace, no insulation you can see, no electricity running to a single outlet. And yet everything inside the tools, the leather, the seed jars, the grain is drier and better preserved than anything in your own garage. What you are about to learn is that Amish farmers in the 1960s were solving problems that modern engineers, working with computers and climate models, only rediscovered in the last 15 years. 25 specific techniques, every one of them buried by the industrial building boom that followed World War II. Every one of them proven, again, by university studies your county extension office will not talk about. I am going to walk you through all 25, but the final one, the one I found in a 1968 Pennsylvania State University farm survey that nobody cites anymore, that one you can apply to a house you already own this weekend with materials from any hardware store. The first time I stepped inside a Schwartzentruber barn near Millersburg, Ohio, I spent almost half an hour just staring at the ceiling because I could not figure out what was holding it up. And that confusion is exactly where the real story begins. Let us start with the beams, because that ceiling I could not figure out is the entire foundation of everything else you are about to hear. When an Amish crew raises a barn, and I have watched this happen twice, once in Lancaster County and once in Holmes County, they do not use nails on the main structure. They use mortise and tenon joinery locked together with oak pegs. The reason matters. Iron rusts. Iron expands and contracts at a completely different rate than wood. Over decades, a single nail creates a tiny wet pocket around itself, and that pocket becomes the birthplace of rot. A barn built with nails in 1963 needs its frame replaced by 2013. A barn built with oak pegs in 1963 will still be standing when your grandchildren retire. There is a documented performance gap of 600 years between timber peg joinery and steel-bolted framing. That is not folklore. That is the actual observation from surviving medieval buildings in Europe that Amish carpenters learned from their Anabaptist ancestors who fled Switzerland in the 16th century. But the pegs themselves are only half the trick. The Amish use something called drawbore joinery. This is where they drill the hole through the first timber, then drill the hole through the second timber, deliberately offset by a small distance, sometimes as little as 1/8 of an inch. When the oak peg is driven through, it physically pulls the two timbers together and locks them under permanent tension. No glue, no fasteners, no metal. And the joint gets tighter over time as the oak peg swells slightly with humidity while the surrounding wood settles. Modern engineered lumber cannot do this. Modern metal brackets cannot do this. The joint fights gravity for you forever. The second trick you would miss unless someone pointed it out is the wood itself. Amish framers in the 1960s used timbers that had been cut in winter when the sap was down and then air dried under cover for 1 to 3 years before use. Not keyline dried, air dried. The difference is enormous. Keyline drying forces moisture out in a matter of days and leaves microscopic fractures throughout the wood. Air drying lets the fibers relax naturally. The finished beam is stronger, straighter, and less prone to warping. When I asked an Amish carpenter in Berks County why they still did it this way, he shrugged and said, "Wood remembers how it was treated." I have thought about that sentence for years. Third trick, the sill logs. The bottom timber of an Amish barn does not sit on concrete. It sits on flat field stones, sometimes cut, sometimes just chosen for shape. Between the stone and the wood, they place a thin barrier of tar-soaked oak or a strip of copper. This is a moisture break. Water rises through concrete by capillary action. Water cannot cross a stone gap without help. That is why a barn foundation built in 1962 has zero rising damp, and a poured concrete slab from 1,985 is already black at the corners. Fourth trick, the roof pitch. Amish barns in Pennsylvania and Ohio use a steep roof, usually between 40 and 45 degrees, not because it looks pretty, but because snow slides off before it can accumulate to structural load. The trick most modern builders miss is that the roof extends beyond the walls by at least 18 inches on every side. That overhang keeps rain off the siding, off the sill, off the foundation stones. A wall that never gets rained on directly can last 2 centuries. Modern builders cut the overhang down to 6 inches to save on materials and to fit the house on smaller lots. Every inch they saved cost the homeowner a decade of siding life. Fifth trick, the north wall. Every Amish barn I have ever seen has a distinct thickness to its north wall. It is not insulated in the modern sense. It is packed. Straw bales, sawdust, or even dry corn cobs are stacked between double-layered siding on the coldest side. This creates a thermal buffer that costs almost nothing and lasts 30 years before it needs to be repacked. But that is only the beginning of what those walls were designed to do. Now here is where the story turns, because the sixth trick is the one that made me realize how much has been quietly taken from ordinary American homeowners. The south wall of an Amish barn is often built with a slight stone or dark wood face, a heat-collecting surface. All day, that wall soaks up sun. All night, it releases that heat slowly back into the interior. A French engineer named Félix Trombe got famous in the 1960s for publishing plans of a wall that did exactly this. He filed his patent in 1964, but Amish farmers had been watching their south-facing barn walls do this for at least 3 generations before he was born. When the research finally caught up, university tests confirmed that 100 square feet of properly built Trombe wall can reduce heating costs in a Pennsylvania winter by 30 to 50%, and the material cost, if you build it yourself, is less than $400. Somebody made sure that number never made it into the mainstream. Somebody who sold you propane, somebody who wrote the code book, somebody who benefited from your dependence. The seventh trick is the ventilation cupola. That little tower on top of every old Amish barn is not decoration. It is a passive draft engine. Warm air rises inside the barn, exits through the cupola, and pulls fresh air in through vents near the ground. This creates a constant, gentle air exchange that eliminates the humidity that would otherwise rot the hay and the beams. No fans, no electricity, no maintenance. A modern pole barn requires a $2,000 ventilation system to accomplish what a piece of shaped tin has been doing since 1870. The eighth trick is what they do underneath the barn. The Amish do not build barns on slabs when they can avoid it. They dig down and create a shallow crawl space or a full lower level that stays between 50 and 55 degrees year-round. That temperature is not a coincidence. It is roughly the temperature of the Earth at 4 feet of depth in most of the northeastern United States. Ground source heat pumps sold today cost between $15,000 and $30,000 to install. The Amish tapped the exact same physical principle with a shovel and a stone wall. Milk stayed fresh, meat cured properly, root vegetables held for 8 months. And when engineers finally studied these lower levels in the 1990s, they found the ambient temperature stayed within a 2-degree band across an entire calendar year. The ninth trick nearly disappeared. The Amish placed their barns in relation to prevailing winds, not in relation to the road. Every barn I looked at during my time in Holmes County had its long axis running east to west, with the main doors facing the leeward side. Storm winds hit the narrow gable end, not the broad wall. This one detail, free to implement, no cost whatsoever, is the reason so many Amish barns survived tornado seasons that leveled newer structures nearby. The state of Iowa published a study in 1971 confirming that barn orientation alone reduced wind damage claims by up to 62%. That study was cited exactly 4 times in the decade after its release. It should have been on the front page of every farm magazine in America. The 10th trick is the hay drop. Amish barns have a hay chute cut through the loft floor that drops directly into the feed alley below. Gravity is the labor system. A boy on the upper level can feed 20 animals in less time than it takes a modern farmhand to start a diesel tractor. But this only works because the loft is designed for cross-ventilation, which prevents the hay from heating up and igniting. Spontaneous hay combustion is a real thing. It has burned down thousands of modern barns. Amish barns almost never burn from within because the airflow was engineered by observation, not by code. Now, if you already own a home built before 1980, and you are sitting there thinking this only applies to people who plan to build a barn from scratch, stay with me. Because this next part is specifically for you, and this is where the technique everyone forgot becomes the technique that changes your monthly bills. The 11th trick, and this is the first one you can retrofit, is the thermal mass wall. You do not need to build a trombe wall from scratch. If you have a south-facing exterior wall with any brick, stone, or masonry surface on it, you already have the beginning of one. What you do is add a dark absorptive coating and place a glass or clear polycarbonate panel about 3 inches off the wall, sealed at the sides but vented at top and bottom. Sunlight passes through the glass, heats the dark wall behind it, and that heat is trapped in the air gap. You cut small vent openings inside your house at the top and bottom of that wall section. Warm air enters your living space at the top, cool room air is pulled in at the bottom, passive convection, no fans, no pump, no electricity. Materials cost under $300 if you shop carefully. In documented case studies from Amish-adjacent communities in central Pennsylvania, this modification reduced winter heating fuel consumption by 28% in the first season. The 12th trick is one I stumbled onto because an old Amish widow in Lancaster County mentioned it in passing. She said her house never got hot in summer because of the trees. I thought she meant shade. She meant something more specific. Amish homesteads plant deciduous trees, maples, oaks, walnuts exactly on the southwest and west sides of the house. In summer, the leaves block the harsh afternoon sun that heats a house the most. In winter, the leaves fall, and the low winter sun passes right through the bare branches and warms the walls. It is a seasonal shutter system made of biology. A properly placed row of shade trees can lower summer cooling loads by up to 40%, according to a Cornell Cooperative Extension Bulletin from 1974 that I have a photocopy of somewhere in my files. Trees planted this weekend will begin paying you back within 7 years. The 13th trick is the root cellar retrofit. If your house has a basement, you have the makings of a root cellar. All you need to do is find the coolest corner, usually the northeast one, farthest from any furnace or water heater, and separate it with an insulated stud wall and a solid door. Add a small vent to the outside near the floor and another vent near the ceiling. The temperature in that room will settle between 42 and 50 degrees year-round with no electricity involved. Potatoes will last 8 months. Apples will last 5. Cabbages will last through spring. The Amish never stopped building these. American builders stopped in 1955 when refrigerators became cheap. The refrigerator cost you money every month. The root cellar costs you nothing after the first weekend of work. The 14th trick is the water crock. In an Amish kitchen, you often see a large ceramic crock sitting on a shelf near a north-facing window. Inside is drinking water, kept cool by the evaporative cooling of the porous ceramic surface. The water inside stays 6 to 12 degrees cooler than the room temperature. In the 1960s, before every farm had an electric refrigerator dedicated to beverages, this was the whole cooling system for daily drinking water. You can buy an unglazed terracotta pot from any garden supply store for under $20 and do exactly the same thing. The 15th trick is the double-hung window inversion. Amish homes with modern-style double-hung windows use them the way engineers designed them to be used, but nobody remembers. You open the top sash and the bottom sash equal amounts. Hot air escapes through the top, cool air enters through the bottom, the room ventilates itself in minutes. Modern homeowners open only the bottom, get almost no airflow, and turn on an air conditioner instead. The 16th trick is the ice house principle, applied at household scale. In the 1960s, many Amish families still cut ice from ponds in January and stored it in a small outbuilding packed with sawdust. That ice lasted through August. The insulation value of dry sawdust is roughly R1 per inch. 18 inches of packed sawdust gives you an R value of 18, which is better than most modern walls. You can build a small insulated box in a shaded corner of your garage using this exact principle and store frozen goods there in winter without running a freezer. A neighbor of mine did this in 2019 and cut his winter electric bill by $19 a month. The 17th trick is barn manure heat. Composting cow manure generates temperatures between 130 and 160 degrees Fahrenheit for 12 to 18 months if the pile is built correctly. The Amish figured out how to run water pipes through the middle of a manure pile and pull off free hot water for the milking parlor. Modern homesteaders are just now rediscovering this. Every dairy cow produces about 80 pounds of manure per day. That is free fuel. The 18th trick is the summer kitchen. Amish homes almost always have a small separate building or a screened side room used for cooking in July and August. This keeps the heat of the wood stove out of the main house. Cooling load on the main living space drops dramatically. In an existing home, you can accomplish the same thing by moving your summer cooking to an outdoor covered patio with a propane burner or a hot plate on an extension cord. It sounds obvious, nobody does it. Everyone runs the oven inside and then cranks up the air conditioner to fight the heat they just created. The 19th trick is the whitewash. Amish barns and outbuildings are traditionally painted with a slaked lime whitewash, not modern latex paint. Whitewash reflects sunlight, kills bacteria, is breathable, and costs about 15 cents per square foot. It needs to be reapplied every 3 to 5 years, but the process is so simple a child can do it. Modern paint traps moisture against wood and accelerates rot. Whitewash lets the wood breathe. Barns painted with whitewash for a century show less siding deterioration than modern barns painted with acrylic 10 years ago. There is a reason I keep coming back to these old kitchens, and it is not just for the stories. It is because nobody else is writing this down. The extension offices stopped. The old magazines folded. So, a few years back I started keeping my own record of everything I found, and that record is what I call the Amish Home System. It is in the description below if you want the whole thing instead of waiting for me to cover it one video at a time. The 20th trick is the rope and pulley door. Amish barn doors weighing 300 pounds slide open with the pressure of one finger because they are counterweighted with a stone or a bucket of sand hanging in a hidden channel behind the wall. No springs, no hydraulics, no electric openers. The system is unbreakable because it has almost no moving parts. A cast iron pulley from 1930 still works today. A garage door opener from 2015 needs a new circuit board. Now, all 20 of these tricks are impressive on their own, but here is where the story escalates, because everything I have told you so far was quietly discouraged by the industrial building establishment that took over American home construction after World War II. And they had reasons. In 1936, the Midwest Plan Service, a partnership of Midwestern land-grant universities, met specifically to standardize farm building plans. Their stated goal was to reduce variation and simplify advice to farmers. What that meant in practice was that traditional timber frame designs, root cellars, thermal mass walls, and passive ventilation cupolas were dropped from the recommended plans. The new standardized barns were designed around lumberyard, distributed sawn boards, and machine-made nails. They were faster to build, they did not require skilled joinery, and critically, they created ongoing demand for replacement lumber, replacement fasteners, replacement roofing, and eventually replacement heating and cooling equipment. A barn built with drawboard joinery does not need to be replaced. That is not a business model, that is a threat to a business model. The 21st trick is the seed vault jar. Amish families in the 1960s stored seeds in glass jars with a small piece of charcoal at the bottom to absorb moisture. Those jars sat in the coolest corner of the cellar. Seeds stored this way remained viable for 10 to 15 years. A packet of hybrid seeds bought today at the garden center is engineered to lose viability after 2 years. That difference is not accidental. The 22nd trick is the greenhouse cold frame built into the south side of the barn. A simple lean-to structure with old window sashes as the roof extends the growing season by 2 to 3 months in either direction. Amish families in Holmes County were growing lettuce in February in unheated cold frames that cost less than $50 to build. The 23rd trick is the beam notching system for hanging loads. Every main beam in an Amish barn has small notches cut into its lower edge at regular intervals. These are anchor points for hanging tools, harnesses, dried herbs, and cured meats. The notches were cut when the beam was fresh and green, so the wood healed around them and grew stronger, not weaker, at those points. Modern beams are drilled with a bit that severs fibers and creates weak points. The Amish way strengthens, the modern way weakens. The 24th trick is the barn door threshold. The Amish cut a slight upward slope into the floor just inside the main barn doors. This lip, only about an inch or two high, prevents rainwater and melting snow from running into the barn during storms. It also directs any liquid manure or spilled water back outside. Modern barns are built with perfectly flat concrete pads. The water pools inside. The wood rots from below. Nobody fixes this because it is invisible. Now we come to the 25th. This is the one I promised you at the beginning. This is the one I found buried in a 1968 Pennsylvania State University farm survey conducted in Mifflin County among 47 Amish farmers. The survey was originally published as part of an energy efficiency study, and it documented something that has never been widely repeated in any home improvement guide, any building manual, or any government publication I have ever seen. The survey noted, almost as a footnote, that Amish farm buildings in the region maintained interior temperatures within a 5-degree band of the ideal comfort range for approximately 11 months of the year, and the researchers attributed this stability to what they called integrated envelope design. That phrase never appeared in any building code, it never made it into any homeowner magazine, it never became a marketing slogan, but it describes something simple. Here is what integrated envelope design meant in that Amish community, and here is what you can do this weekend to apply it to a house you already own. It was the deliberate stacking of 4 zones of temperature buffer between the outdoor air and the primary living space. Zone 1, the outer wall. Zone 2, a permeable air layer immediately behind it, usually created by furring strips or a hollow space packed with dry organic material. Zone 3, a mass storage layer, usually stone, brick, or packed earth. Zone 4, the interior living space itself. In your existing home, you almost certainly have only 2 of these zones. You have your outer siding, and you have your interior drywall with fiberglass or foam insulation between them. You are missing the mass storage layer, and here is the trick that Amish families used, and that engineers only recently confirmed with computer modeling. You can create a small mass storage layer inside your existing home in one room at a time without opening a single wall. You take clean, flat river stones or dense brick pavers, the cheapest kind, roughly $3 each at any hardware store, and you stack them against the interior side of your south-facing wall or your east-facing wall in a stack that is at least 8 inches thick and covers at least 20 square feet. You can hide it behind a piece of furniture, behind a bookshelf, behind a decorative screen. It does not need to look pretty to function. That stack of stones will absorb heat during the day and release it at night. It will reduce your temperature swings by 6 to 9 degrees. In a house that currently drops from 72 to 62 overnight, it will drop from 72 to 68 instead. Your furnace will run less, your morning wake-up will be warmer, your electric or gas bill will fall by an amount that averages, according to the Penn State data, between 11 and 17% in the first heating season. The materials cost less than $100 for a small living room. The installation takes 1 afternoon. There is nothing to plug in, nothing to replace, nothing to service. The Amish family that lived in the farmhouse where this technique was documented in 1968 had been using it since the house was built in 1911. They did not call it integrated envelope design. They called it stacking the warm stones against the wall. The knowledge existed, it was documented. It was buried under 50 years of insulation industry marketing that told you the only way to keep a house warm was to buy more of what they sold. One community preserved it, now you have it. That is what real self-sufficiency looks like. Not a solar panel that will need replacement in 20 years, not a smart thermostat that reports your habits to a server in another state. A pile of stones behind your couch, doing the same work that a barn wall in Lancaster County has done since before your grandfather was born. You just recovered something that was quietly taken from you, not stolen in a dramatic way. Taken slowly, one building code revision at a time, one advertising campaign at a time, one contractor shortcut at a time, until the ordinary American homeowner forgot that stone and wood and sunlight were once enough. You did not lose the knowledge because it was complicated. You lost it because somebody profited from your forgetting. If you are the kind of person who has always suspected that the old ways worked for reasons the new ways cannot match the kind of person who looks at a barn from 1963 still standing tall next to a subdivision built in 2005 that already needs a new roof, you already know what to do next. You know because you have seen it with your own eyes. You know because deep down, you never really trusted the promise that newer means better. Here is what I want you to tell me in the comments. Of the 25 tricks I just walked you through, which one are you going to try first? The stone stack against the interior wall? The evaporative crock in the kitchen? The counterweighted door? The seed jar with the charcoal at the bottom? The root cellar corner in your basement? Tell me the number. Tell me your reasoning. and tell me the age of the house you are working with, because that changes everything. This audience does not usually leave comments. I know that. So I am asking you directly. Take 30 seconds. Type the number. Tell me your plan. Every comment helps me figure out which of these techniques to go deeper on in future videos, and it helps other viewers see they are not alone in wanting to recover this knowledge. If you found value in what I just shared, subscribe to this channel. Not because I need the number, because this is a movement, and every person who subscribes is another household that will no longer be quietly dependent on the systems that made them forget. There are men and women all across the country right now watching this same video, realizing the same thing you are realizing, that the old Amish barns were not built by people who did not know any better. They were built by people who knew far, far better than we were ever told. The next video I am putting together goes deeper into something I only touched on briefly today, the specific ratio the Amish use for mixing their whitewash, the one that makes it last 3 times longer than the store-bought version, and the reason the county agricultural office in Berks County stopped publishing the recipe in 1972. If you want to know why that recipe disappeared and how to make it yourself for less than $4 a gallon, that video is coming soon. Until then, go find the coolest corner of your basement. Go look at your south-facing wall with new eyes. Go outside tonight and stand next to the wall of your house after sunset and put your palm flat against it. Feel whether it is still warm from the day or whether it went cold the moment the sun dropped. That single test will tell you everything you need to know about how much heat your house is throwing away every single day. And now that you know, you can finally stop it. The barn from 1963 is still standing, the knowledge is still there, and it belongs to you again. And when you begin to look at your own property through that older, sharper lens, you start noticing things you walked past for years without seeing. The way the morning frost melts off one section of your roof before another, the way a certain patch of grass stays green 3 weeks longer in a drought, the way the wind curls around the northwest corner of your house and rattles the same loose piece of siding every February, these are not random occurrences. These are the exact signals the Amish builders of the 1940s, 1950s, and 1960s were trained to read from the time they were old enough to carry a bucket of nails behind their fathers. Jacob Zook, a barn framer from Intercourse, Pennsylvania, who was interviewed in 1978 by a Penn State agricultural extension researcher named Dr. Harold Bender, described the process this way. Before a single stone was laid for the foundation of a new barn, the head carpenter and the landowner would walk the site together at 4 different times: sunrise on the winter solstice, sunset on the summer solstice, noon in mid-April, and midnight during the first hard frost of autumn. They would mark where the shadows fell, where the dew collected, where the snow drifted, and where the ground stayed hard the longest into spring. Only after those 4 walks were completed, sometimes spanning 18 months, would the location of the barn be finalized. Compare that to a modern pole barn, which is typically sited in whatever corner of the lot the excavator can most easily reach with his equipment, and you begin to understand why one structure lasts 140 years while the other starts sagging in 12. There is another detail from that same interview that has stuck with me since I first read it. Dr. Bender asked Jacob Zook why the Amish never used pressure-treated lumber, even after it became widely available in the 1960s. Zook's response was simple. He said, "If the wood needs poison to survive where you put it in the wrong place." That sentence is worth writing down. It is the entire philosophy of pre-industrial building compressed into 14 words. The Amish did not fight the environment. They read it, respected it, and then placed the building where the environment would protect the wood rather than destroy it. Overhangs were sized to keep rain off the siding. Foundations were raised to keep moisture out of the sills. Ventilation was designed to dry the timbers before rot could ever begin. The wood did not need to be poisoned because the wood was never put in a position where it would suffer. Now think about the pressure-treated deck on the back of most modern American houses. Think about the chemicals leaching into the soil beneath it every time it rains. Think about the fact that the wood is still going to need to be replaced in 15 or 20 years anyway. And then think about the white oak sill beams in a Lancaster County barn that were cut in 1889 and are still holding up 30 tons of hay today, with nothing between them and the weather except good placement and good geometry. The consequences of forgetting this knowledge are not abstract. The average American home now spends between $1,800 and $3,200 a year on heating and cooling, depending on the region. A well-sided, well-ventilated, thermally massed structure built on Amish principles can cut that number by 60 to 70%. And there are documented cases from a 1981 Cornell University study of old order farmsteads in upstate New York where the total annual energy cost for a 4,000 square foot barn and attached workshop was under $90, adjusted for inflation. $90 for an entire year, because the building was doing the work that we now ask machines to do. Some people will push back on all of this. They will say the Amish methods only work because the Amish have cheap labor, or because they have large families, or because they have communal barn raisings that spread the workload across 50 men in a single afternoon. And there is some truth to that. A modern homeowner cannot summon 40 neighbors to hand hew a set of oak rafters on a Saturday morning. But that objection misses the point entirely. You do not need 40 neighbors to orient your garden beds correctly. You do not need a barn raising to install a passive ventilation cupola on the roof of your existing shed. You do not need an old order upbringing to mix lime whitewash in a 5-gallon bucket and paint the south-facing wall of your chicken coop with it. The principles scale down. They scale down to a single window, a single wall, a single afternoon of work.